Good afternoon, everyone. Everybody awake? First, I really want to thank ARC and all the sponsors for making this event possible. Thanking Peter for inviting me. I hope he doesn't regret it when I'm done. It never happened before. Let's see which way we're going to go. And I want to thank my current organization, Sinclair Oil, for allowing me the time to come and share my thoughts. If you've ever been across I-80 in Wyoming, right in the middle between Laramie and Rock Springs, 100 miles from either place, which means it's 100 miles from the nearest Home Depot, is Rawlins, Wyoming, and that's where this place sits. It's a Carbon County. It's a really wonderful place if you like fly fishing and hunting and everything else, but you have to get used to a constant wind of about 22 miles an hour and some pretty brutal winters. The interesting thing, I'll just make one comment, that's the refinery in Sinclair, Wyoming. That's the town of Parco, now called Sinclair. The plant manager used to be the mayor of the town. So that was a skill set that was required. You had to be a politician to the nth degree because you had a public office when you became mayor of the facility or plant manager of the facility. What I do want to say, I'm talking about 53 going on 54 years of implementing technology. God help me, I'm addicted to technology. I started over here with NASA and the Apollo-Soyuz Skylab projects. I was heavy into R&D. Worked in flight crew training simulation, then went over to Max Fouget's computation analysis and design. Working with technology, having to do things that hadn't been invented yet. And it got into my blood and I can't get rid of it. And now I'm here 72 years old and still kicking, keeping me young. So what I'm expressing is what I've learned over 50 plus years of implementing technology. The first thing I want to talk about is asset performance management. Everybody familiar with that? Everybody kind of rated where in this? Anybody up here at Prescriptive? Anybody there? Anybody here at Predictive doing analytics and that? Feel really good about what you're doing? Got all kinds of programs, reliability-centered maintenance, RCM, any of those, right? You all have got those programs in place, right? You got KPIs. What are your KPIs? Mean time between failure, mean time between repair. I see yes? Okay. Well, guess what? I'm not going to talk anything about technology. I'm not going to talk about taxonomies, ecosystems, or anything related to it. It's what I feel makes all of that actually generate benefit. And that is the human asset performance. Most people here, engineering or technical background, chemical engineers, process, mechanical, whatever. See a lot of heads bobbing. Okay. So you know all of this. Where are you on this model if you apply these approaches that you're very familiar with to your workforce? Are you down here with reactive, somebody leaves and you hire? Are you looking at digital transformation and everything that's coming up, and are you approaching your workforce in a planned manner? Are you preventative? Are you predictive? We're talking about digital transformation. What happens when you've transformed? What's the next thing? You know, are you prescriptive? Are you developing your workforce and getting the workforce that you need in place that as the newer technologies and you get past digital, get past the transformation and get to the point that there's the N+1 technology coming to the market, that you've got a workforce that's out there passionately embracing it, and we don't have to continue to talk about the problems with the workforce adaptation of what it is that I'm putting out. Does that ring true anywhere? So what is the investments you're making in this equal to the level of time that you're putting into fixed asset performance management? Is there parity? Because I offer in my 50 years of experiences that the physical asset performance is 100% tied to your human asset performance. Is it being designed accurately? Is the procurement buying the right spec? Is it being inspected correctly? Is it being constructed correctly? I can go on and down the list. Is it being operated within the parameters that it was designed? I've been through many, many, many incident investigations, and ultimately, somewhere in that process, there was a human pulling a wrench, making a decision, turning a dial that took all of the focus on the asset itself and just kind of threw it in the waste bin. And so, how are you tying these things together? So we're bringing, and we're talking about a massive amount of investment here in various approaches with machine learning and artificial intelligence, everything focused on the fixed asset part of it. But what are we doing here? Are we thinking differently? Are we approaching it as something that makes sense? I pulled out some statistics here that I thought was a kind of an interesting approach to amplifying my point here. This comes from Science Direct, Lifehacker, Psychology Today. How many people multitask, and do you expect your workforce to multitask? True? I mean, how many, one engineer, one project at a time, one activity at a time? That's not reality. Here's the facts. Research proves that only 2% of the workforce can actually multiprocess. For the other 98%, multitasking actually is physically detrimental to your brain. "89% of employees at the workplace have their smartphone on their desk, causing distractions. 45% of that 89% that have their smartphone there by their own choice are complaining because their employer gives them too many things to do." Average employees using a computer are distracted every 10.5 minutes. And this is checking email, checking the internet, because they're in front of a computer or something pops up. The amazing fact here is a sidebar, 67% of the American population, male, female, they'll check their email when they're on a date. 45 are distracted and do it in a movie, which I hate. The amazing part, 33% of the workforce is checking their email in church. I'm looking out there seeing if I'm doing better than church here, getting people's attention. The studies show that distractions while working lower an individual's IQ by 10%. Now, according to Psychology Today, that distraction, which lowers your IQ by 10%, is equal to losing a night's sleep. More so, that's equivalent to smoking 2 joints. So if my speech is interfering and distracting from your email while you're sitting there, you can thank me later for the high. But what are we doing with the workforce, with technology? We're having people wanting to focus, get the maximum efficiency and effectiveness about what they're doing in their job. And we're putting Jabber and instant messaging in that so you, potential as managers, can get instantaneous responses. Where your organization is putting in teamworks, where you're generating these distractions every 10.5 minutes. That seems a little bit inconsistent. So when you're talking about technology, what are you really trying to accomplish? Adding up the quick math at 10.5 seconds in that, you're losing 2.1 hours a day with distraction. That's 546 work hours annually. And I see people sitting out there and you're managers, and I'm sure you've got staffs. And all of you are saying, what? I don't have enough people? All I'm trying to do here is just think about it a little bit with respect to technology and what is the purpose that you're trying to achieve with it. And what are you doing to the workforce that you're trying to enable and get the most and best out of? So as we're looking at these different elements, and as engineers and everybody looking at fixed assets and how to do asset performance management and focus on getting the maximum life, is there parity? When you talk about cross-functional teams, is HR represented? I just read a McKinsey article yesterday. You know what the number one demand of job skill is right now, according to McKinsey? I don't know. I didn't get it into their research to validate it. No, soft skills, HR. You can't find the data analysts if you can't get HR to attract and retain the best people. So is there parity in the focus of the organization? Is there parity with respect to the investments, the programs, the time, and everything? If no, think about it. You know, I keep hearing about the organizations that say, we're losing our senior workforce. These are the same workforce that I also hear, God, these old dogs won't learn new tricks. What am I going to do? I think that loss of the workforce and the transition is timely, actually, for me. I'm just waiting to see a plant manager in tight jeans and a non-tucked shirt. You know? Because I think as we go forward and we get past that transformation and get to what I'm calling digital innovation, it's going to take new leadership, a whole new paradigm, and a whole new way of thinking about the workforce, because again, somebody in that work process is going to be pulling a wrench, turning a dial, making a decision. Maybe sometime in the future, quantum computing will be there and we can all retire. It's not going to happen in my career lifetime, maybe in some of yours. So I just say, what is the value drivers that you're trying to achieve with the technology that you're putting in place with respect to the workforce that you need? Predecessor up here was talking about preparation and making sure that things are sustainable. I've been around long enough. I've been in plants where I've replaced 2 times what I put in 30 years ago. You know, people get passionate about all of the new widgets and stuff. You know, before ERP, there was MRP2. Before MRP2, there was MRP. You know, before cloud, there was distributed computing. Before that, client server. You know, after cloud, I guess we're going to get to Galaxy or something. I don't know. You know. But what is the information technology going to do to your workforce? And really think it through. with respect to the impacts that you're having on that workforce and setting it up, again, not only sustainable from sustaining the technology, that's a small piece. It's sustaining the enterprise as it moves forward past that transformation. And it's going to be the consistent aspect is going to be that workforce. And how do you retain them, stimulate them, and keep them on board so they become the old timers? So just understanding, when you're looking at it, what is it really, really, really doing? Because simple things like Jabber and Teamworks and that generate interruptions, I'm really feeling good. I don't see a lot of people down looking. The ones that are don't hear me anyway, so I wouldn't ask them to raise their hands. So there's a ton of stuff out there. And it's coming fast and furious, and it's gonna, the pace that it comes forward is going to be exponential. Believe me, when I started coding, I was telling somebody the other day, and I'm not gonna go into war stories, we debug code with oscilloscopes. I had to trace signals on the board to find out where the failures were. Paper tape bootstraps. Put man on the moon. I will respect, because the approaches to success, and this is based, again, my roots are in NASA over here with the Apollo program. If you want to benchmark your organizations, consider the Apollo program and whether your organization could achieve an equivalent. You had the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, state not only once, we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. He went down to Baylor University and made it a second time. Our total experience in space at that point was a 15-minute suborbital flight. But he said, we're going to put a man on the moon and return him safely by the end of the century. When Apollo took off, there were, I think it was 5.6 or 5.7 million discrete parts generated and assembled by 400,000 plus employees from 20,000 different subcontractors. And you had the entire world counting down to the liftoff with you as to whether you succeeded or not. Talk about a program demand. And we did it without this technology. What's the secret? Why did it work? People talk about NASA or the Apollo program, and they think that the biggest takeaway from Apollo was space blankets, Velcro, and Tang. Think about the program and organizational dynamics that made that happen. 5.6 million, 400,000 people, 20,000 contractors, and it worked. And I worked on those systems. They were paper tape boots. We had no discs. And it worked. What was the difference? And this is what I think is key to success with transformation, whatever comes after transformation. The big key element, the takeaway from my experience, in whatever name it's given, taking technology and making it succeed, is vision and dedication to the mission, not an individual career or whether I'm right or I'm wrong. Everything in the program was to the mission. Every decision, and there were some guiding principles. And if you don't have a vision, you don't have a mission. And how did we get in that program, that dedication? In change management with the people talk about change management. Okay, I'm going to train people. I'm going to put something new in. I'm going to train people. And I keep reminding folks that there's three aspects to change. I can physically change. I can put a new system in place. I can physically change it. I can take somebody and move their desk, and I can physically move them, and it happens very quickly. There's a second aspect of the employee's intellectual acceptance of that change. It takes a little bit longer. The key part is the emotional change. It takes more effort, more time, and when you get the emotional change, then it becomes about the mission of the organization, not the project, not the buzzword, not the technology, but the overall direction and what the end goal is for the organization within their career lifetime. And when you get that commission, then you get the culture that you want to achieve. My favorite expression is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so I hear all of the transformation issues and everything else. You got to be passionate about the mission, what it is, the overall objective is you're trying to reach, not necessarily the technology, because the technology is itself transitional, and it's going to change. You're going to retire what you're proud of and what you're fighting for. So you just need to take a different approach to it. So with that, to wrap this up real quick, I kind of sometimes get very passionate about it, and I apologize if I sound preachy. I'm old. And I'm very passionate about this topic. So physical asset performance tightly linked to human performance. Ultimately, somebody, again, is doing something. Need to achieve parity and synchronization between those two domains. If they are way out of whack, you may achieve benefit for the investments in the technology, but you will not achieve maximum benefits or the maximum potential. You will only get what people will give you. I've seen many very poor software packages generate stellar results because of the emotional commitment of the organization to make it succeed. And I've seen very good software packages fail miserably for the other reason. There's many, many moving parts, and there's no single right answer. For every organization that I've been associated with, either as an employee or as a consultant, there is no right answer. There is no prescriptive way to say this is what will work for you. You got to figure that out. And you got to get in touch with the people. That's where the answer lies, in getting that emotional commitment. And it's all dependent upon the organization's maturity, their history, the embedded culture, to get to that right answer. So with that, I want to thank you for giving me, 15, 20 minutes of time to hopefully make you think just a little bit different about the journey you're on, as opposed to flowcharts of ecosystems and taxonomies and everything else. Because while that's all important, and don't get me wrong, I'm not being contrarian to the value of technology. Quite the opposite. But what I'm saying, to get the maximum benefit, you got to work on the human aspect. So with that, Peter?